What is going on, guys? Matt Downs with Daily Grind Fantasy Sports to help give you the edge for this 3-game NFL slate. Cannot wait to break it down. If you want to be entered into our $25 giveaway, please like, subscribe, and comment your favorite overall play for this NFL slate. If you guys are brand new to this channel, we provide both free and paid content for all daily fantasy sports across all sports. If you could please show your support by hitting that subscribe button, notification bell, and of course smashing that like button for all of our future NFL content. If you would like to know more about becoming a better DFS player and taking down that big GPP, head over to www.patreon.com/DGFantasy for more information. On Patreon, we give advanced cheat sheets for all DFS sports on Draftkings. These cheat sheets include updated projections, ownership, and our overall favorite plays from slate to slate. We take it a step further by teaching you how to play fantasy sports like a shark, by showing you where the best leverage spots are to put you in the best spots to take down tourneys. Also included is our private Discord chat where you get to talk over the slate with everyone, including our coaches, to help build your lineups. Now let's go ahead and dive right into this NFL 3-game wildcard slate. Right now we have another slate going on. We're going to be putting out this video probably Sunday morning, so hopefully everything's up to date. All the COVID news is figured out. Right now Kamara is expected to play. Right now he's the highest owned, so take that with a grain of salt. If he is ruled out, well, I'll comment in the YouTube comment section below, guys. But let's go ahead and start here from the top. At the quarterback position, we have Lamar Jackson at 33.3% owned, the highest owned and the highest over-under. Guys, it's going to be Lamar Jackson or anybody else. So I'll start out with you, TJ. Lamar Jackson, 33.3%. Are you buying then here versus the Titans?
Yeah, I am, Matt. Again, you just talked about it. The highest over-under that we have on this 3-game slate. The highest team total over-under as well, sitting at 29 currently. Lamar also going up against the Titans defense that ranks 30th in DVOA against opposing quarterbacks. So I think it's a fantastic matchup. He is priced up way higher than anybody else on the slate. For cash, I think you go to Lamar. If you're playing tournaments, I think you probably go elsewhere.
Yep, I completely agree. Kevin, do you agree with paying up at the quarterback position? Lamar Jackson is $7,800, so it's very expensive. But again, you're expecting him to do pretty well here in a very high over-under versus a very bad defense. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think this is a similar situation we're seeing, Matt, to what we talked about yesterday about the Bills and Josh Allen. I think it's viable in cash. I think it's viable in GPP because he probably will be the highest scoring quarterback on the slate.
Yeah.
You know, just because, I mean, you look who else is on the slate. We got some game managers. We got some, nobody uses their legs. I mean, the only person who really uses their legs at all is Trubisky in there, and you don't want to target him, obviously, against the
Big
Saints.
Ben uses his legs.
Big Ben, he breaks his legs.
To stay up.
Yeah. He hurts his legs. So I definitely think, yeah, I like Lamar Jackson. This is going to be kind of a revenge game from last year.
I agree. I think it's a very high floor. If we were to go anywhere else on this slate for GPPs, and again, we're stretching it because we didn't want to do this when we were doing this last time, Kevin, with Josh Allen. Obviously should be the highest scoring player based on what he's doing right now currently. Where else are we going, TJ? Are you going anywhere else other than Lamar Jackson for upside?
In terms of cash?
GPPs,
or
sorry.
just in general?
Yeah.
I mean, Ben's cheap at 6,100. I wouldn't mind going there. Going up against the 25th defense against opposing quarterbacks in the Cleveland Browns. So I don't hate him as a cheaper play at 61. I wouldn't mind Tannehill, honestly. If they're going to fall behind, they're going to rely on him. A lot of people probably going to go to Derrick Henry. So if you want a cheaper guy in terms of lower ownership as well, I think you can look at Tannehill at 6,600. I mean, you can get exposure to all these guys, but I think Lamar is far in between the best play that we have here. The price tag says it all. The ownership says it all. I think you can play him naked if you need to. So yeah. I like Lamar at 78. Drew Brees is cheap, man, at 5,700. I have interest in all these guys, obviously, because there's only 6 quarterbacks to really choose from. But yeah, Lamar is by far the best option for quarterbacks.
Kevin, where are you going in GPPs? You agree with TJ?
Yeah, the only one I was really looking at would be Ryan Tannehill. Find themselves down, got to keep up. He's someone who can score.
And they're only 3-point underdogs, so they could win this thing. They definitely have a shot. So I completely agree with you. Chasing the high over-unders, I want to also just add one last thought before we move on the running backs. The bad chalk is not with the highest owned guy. Lamar Jackson at 33.3% ownership in GPPs is actually undervalued. Turns out to be a sharp play at that ownership. So just goes to show you very low ownership.
Sharp plays.
Guess who the bad chalk is with, guys? It's with Drew Brees at $5,700. A lot of people are going to try to salary save there. Not that much upside in GPPs. I definitely love Lamar Jackson as good chalk tomorrow. That being said, let's go ahead and move on to the running back position where we have another chalky running back here with Kamara, 56%. You guys see what I did there? Another chalky running back. 56% owned Kamara. Obviously with his COVID news. Raiders. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but he did tweet out earlier that he is expected to play. I believe this was Thursday, so a lot of time this in between now or between Sunday and Thursday. But at 56% ownership, Kevin, what are your thoughts here on Kamara? $8,500. That's very expensive. What are your overall thoughts on that?
I really like this slate for running back because there's enough talented players where you can separate yourself, and there's good GPP upside here. There's a lot of these guys could feasibly do better than the other. Even like a Montgomery could do better than Alvin. Derrick Henry, absolutely. I love that him and Alvin are on the same slate. It's going to create a separation, some leverage. If it was just one of them, obviously, I think that if Henry wasn't on the slate, I think Kamara would be sitting at 75% ownership
For sure.
right now. You know what I mean? So I definitely like Kamara for cash. He's obviously been absolutely lights out. Saw him come off a 6 touchdown game. So I mean,
He'll do it again.
He'll do it. Yeah, he'll definitely do it again
Against Chicago too.
Against Chicago. But I definitely think that's how that team's going to win this game, is they're going to keep it in Alvin's hands. So I definitely like him.
You like him in cash?
Yes, I do.
Awesome.
Like
TJ, gotcha. TJ, do you like him in cash as well? 56% ownership.
Yeah, I do. I think it makes sense, Matt. Every single defense that's playing Sunday in this 3-game slate are very good defensively against the run.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of looking at pass catching backs. So I do like Kamara in the spot, again, coming off an absolute monster game against Minnesota in the last game he played. Would never expect him to duplicate that type of effort, but I can easily see him getting you 125 total yards, potentially a touchdown, couple grabs, 5 or 6. So I think he's going to be able to pay off that price tag at 8,500. So the chalk for me makes sense on Kamara. So I do like him.
All right. How about the second highest owned guy here, David Montgomery? Just kidding. Montgomery, guys.
Montgomery, yeah.
35.9% owned. Kevin, you agree with that? 6.9K for him.
I mean, he's been so good lately. I talked about him. He's been absolutely lights out. You know how much I told people to pick him up and or trade for him heavy early in the year because of matchups. But that was because he had a stretch of, it was, listen to the stretch: Green Bay, Detroit, Houston, Minnesota, Jacksonville, Green Bay. Green Bay's terrible against the run. And it's just, that is such a favorable matchup. That's why I like them. This is not that. I mean, the Saints are #1 team in the NFL against running backs right now. So I don't know. That's a little scary. They could find themselves down. He could be just completely out of this game so early. I don't agree with it for cash. I like it more for GPP. If you want to try to take a shot, maybe he does really well. It's playoffs. We've seen stranger things happen. But I mean, I feel like running back is the #1 position playoffs where some teams are hoarding this guy for the whole year, and then it's okay, here's 37 touches. Cam Akers, something. So, but I think it can happen. But for cash and safety, no, not even a little bit.
All right. So David Montgomery here, 35.9%, 6.9K. Not the best matchup, TJ. Are you agreeing with Kevin?
I kind of like Montgomery a little bit here, honestly. I think it's going to be tough to get Henry and Kamara in your cash lineup. So I think you need to pick between one of them and then kind of go a little bit cheaper. Montgomery is going to be Montgomery probably is going to be my second favorite running back for cash. Again, it is a really tough matchup, but they've leaned so heavily on him as of late, especially coming down, toward the end of the year. I don't see that trend kind of, going wayward and them going away from that and relying on Mitch Trubisky. So I think you can get away with him for cash. If you can get Derrick Henry and Kamara, that would probably be the route I would want to go. I just think it's going to be tough to do, especially if you're paying up for Lamar Jackson. So
I agree.
I think it's going to be based off of line of construction. If you aren't paying up a quarterback, I think you can go with Henry and Kamara in cash. If you are paying up for Lamar Jackson, I think you can get one of Henry and Kamara, and then you're probably going to have to go to one of these cheaper running backs. So I think it's mostly for me, I think it's just lineup constructive as to where you're going.
Got it. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think that's why his ownership is so high. It's totally dependent on the line of construction. Let me just stay on this topic then. I guess, Kevin, if you're to get contrarian anyway, it's going to have to be either pay down or either pay up for Derrick Henry. Where are you getting contrarian here at the running back position?
I mean, I think Nick Chubb is still the key to that offense.
He's the best runner in football, I think.
I mean, are you quoting me? I don't.
He's smiling, so yes.
Trolling. Yeah, I mean, I still think that him and Derrick Henry are the best pure runners in football. I still say that.
Funny you had Derrick Henry in here now when he gets 2,000 yards.
Yeah, I mean, what'd you say?
Nothing.
Okay, well, I mean, Derrick Henry will just pound it 37 times down their throat and then break one for 300 yards. So, but yeah, I mean, I like both. Obviously, I like Nick Chubb. 6,700 is a very reachable price tag. Contrarian to TJ and Montgomery, I do like him more at that price tag because I think he can find himself in a more favorable position. But like I said, I think Montgomery can do it too. It's interesting to see James Conner at 31% and coming in as the third highest person. I mean, yeah, 5K, man, that's so cheap.
It's
he is
so crazy.
TJ alluded to. I think there's a good point. There's a lot of good defenses against the run in these playoff games, and he's an all pass catching back. I mean, I think, I don't think James Conner complete opposite. I don't think he's a very good runner at all, but I think he is a good pass catching back. He's good at that. And, he finds himself in scoring opportunities. So I definitely think at 5K, that chalk makes sense to me too. But if I'm going to go contrarian for GPP, I'd probably take a Nick Chubb, even maybe look at one of the Ravens guys.
Got it. So TJ, where are you getting contrarian? Are you paying down for somebody like James Conner?
I think that's a viable option, Matt, because he is so cheap and it's going to allow you some flexibility when creating your lineups. I think Gus Edwards is interesting at 4,400. Kareem Hunt at 4,800 I think is also interesting. So I think there are some cheap options that you can go to. I agree with Kevin on the Nick Chubb play at 6,700. I have interest in a lot of these running backs, but I think going cheaper is going to allow you to get contrarian, and I'm mostly looking at guys like Kareem Hunt and Gus Edwards.
So, not to give away too much Patreon content, but the most contrarian spots to get different for your lineups are actually paying up for Derrick Henry. It says that's the best leverage, or paying for a middle range J.K. Dobbins. What are your thoughts on that, Kevin? Do you like J.K. Dobbins and obviously Derrick Henry?
I think I like Derrick Henry, and then I think like J.K. Dobbins is one of those sneaky people where, like, again, this is what I'm talking about. Like, it could be like, I mean, he's seen a healthy workload. It's always super consistent. It's like in that like 13 attempt range. But I mean, this could be one of those weird times, like I said, playoffs, and they're like, this dude just gets 25 carries.
Yeah.
By the way, Bass just absolutely pumped one through for 56 yards to give put it 2 scores for the Bills.
Get in the way.
Yeah, getting away from. But yeah, that's kind of my mentality behind it. I definitely think Dobbins. I mean, I think one of these running backs is just going to get a weird.
Good luck picking the right one.
What'd you say? Yeah, I know. Good luck picking the right one. But I mean, every single playoffs we see this, they just pump down someone's throat with 30 carries because they're not as afraid of injuries. This is time to win games. You don't take it light, and someone's going to do it. So
I was going to say, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Matt. Any love for Mark Ingram at 4K? I mean,
he's 0.2% owned, so yes, obviously.
Yeah.
Last week, I don't know. Dobbins just looks so good.
I know, but go with the vet in the playoffs, and I agree with you. I think Dobbins and Gus are obviously the two guys that have seen a bulk of the carries in the work, especially coming down the stretch. But I don't know, man. Maybe some veteran mentality. Yeah, a guy that can sneak in the red zone for sure.
Another thing to note also is Lamar Jackson and the running backs are negatively correlated, which means when one's doing good, the others are not. So if you think Lamar Jackson isn't going to do well, then probably J.K. Dobbins is going to do well, assuming that the Ravens still win the game and then put up a ton of points. So that's just something to look at. If you have Lamar Jackson, probably take, or if you don't have Lamar Jackson, probably take one of the running backs there. So a lot of options at the running back position. Let's switch over to the wide receiver position. We have Michael Thomas. We talked about this before we got on the video. 40.7% at 6.3K. Are you kidding me? TJ, what are your thoughts on Michael Thomas? We're not used to seeing him this low, but is it worth it at 6.3K?
Yeah, it is. Just that price tag alone is criminal. This is a guy that we saw last year when he was healthy, mid to high 8K range, the 9K range as well. Yep. So I think you're getting a really discounted Michael Thomas. Couldn't think of the word for some reason. Obviously a tougher matchup against the Bears, but a team that you can definitely throw on a little bit easier than you can run. So yeah, I expect a couple quick slants to Michael Thomas to get, to set the tempo. I think you could see a 10 catch type game from Michael Thomas for 100+ yards and a touchdown. Way too cheap of a price tag at 6,300. So yeah, it makes sense for me for cash.
Yeah, slants only when Drew Brees is throwing to you for sure.
Discounted. Yes.
Kevin, thoughts on Michael Thomas? I know you love Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I think that's just absolutely, like TJ said, it's criminal. Doesn't even make sense. 6,300. I mean, that's a big price drop. And in the games he's played this year, he's been absolutely, it's Michael Thomas. I mean, it's just the targets, the receptions. I mean, in his last 3 of his last 4 games that he played, it's 8, 9, and 9 for receptions. So that's ridiculous. Way too cheap. And it's still the number 1 option on the team. So yeah, it doesn't make any sense for him to be that cheap.
Now,
Easy chalk.
I'm actually physically scratching my head at the next option here. We have Marquis Brown, guys, from the Baltimore Ravens, 35.1% owned at 5.4K. I get it. He's had some really good stretch of games lately. He's been pretty consistent, right? But we're thinking GPP, right? We're thinking GPP ownership here, 35.1%. What are your thoughts on that, TJ? 5.4K, are you buying into Marquis Brown?
He is cheap, and he's actually showed up the second half of the year. After a pretty slow start in the first half of the year. So, yeah, I think the ownership makes sense, Matt. But if I'm looking at tournaments, I'm probably going to fade him. I think there's some better options that you can go. Maybe one of those Pittsburgh wide receivers that he's sandwiched between Juju and Claypool. I think there's a couple cheaper options that I would like to go to as well. But yeah, I understand the ownership just because of the consistency that we've seen over the last 4, 5, 6 weeks. But if I'm playing tournaments, then I'd probably be looking elsewhere. Again, it is a higher over-under against a Tennessee defense that does struggle against opposing wide receivers. They're ranked 30th in DVOA, so it is a good matchup. But I think there's some better options if you're looking for tournaments. If you're looking for cash, then yeah, I could see that playing him at 5,400.
No, I completely agree with you. Kevin, do you agree with the Marquis Brown ownership at 35.1% in tournaments?
I really do. It's such a favorable matchup. He's been so good in terms of consistency. I somewhat agree with TJ with there's there might be some better options for GPP, but at that price tag, I mean, I still think there's a very good chance he makes optimal. I think might be able to pair him with another good receiver, or there might be an easier way to fit in some of those beefier running backs. So I don't know.
Montgomery,
Montgomery, yeah. And I think at 5,400, I definitely think there's a good chance that he actually makes optimal. I really do.
Yeah, I want to transition to GPPs because I want to stay on the same topic. Like somebody that's staring me at in the eyes right now is Corey Davis at $4,800. Somebody who's getting consistent target shares. Obviously, a fluky performance in the last game where they put up 41 points, but he only had 8.9 DK points. Could easily have been a boom game for him. I'm just staring at guys like that, and I just think with the target share that they have, and Ryan Tannehill most likely will have to play catch up, he could easily make for a boom potential game. That's one of my favorite GPP options. Also, the Pittsburgh Steelers are showing some really good leverage, like we already touched base on. I know that TJ did. So I'll start out with that. TJ, who are some of your favorite GPP options here? Are they going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receivers?
What do you have Deontay Johnson at in terms of ownership, Matt?
Ownership, Deontay Johnson at 31.7, so fourth highest on the slate.
He's higher. I do like him for cash. I think he's been really good going down the stretch for the Steelers. When we're talking about 3-game slates, you need to understand that ownership is going to be high on all these guys just because of, you don't really have too many options to really pick from. So I'm kind of looking at some of these cheaper guys, maybe taking a chance on a guy like Miles Boykins that could, have one of those bombs from Lamar for a 50-yard touchdown or something like that to try and pay off that 3,400 price tag. Anthony Miller is kind of intriguing at 3,300. A game where they could be trailing. I do get nervous when we're talking about Baltimore and Tennessee, talking about the Tennessee wide receivers, because if Tennessee can get a lead on Baltimore, like after the first quarter, we're going to see heavy Derrick Henry. It's going to be all Derrick Henry. Like that's all they need. We saw it last year in the playoff run for Tennessee when they made it to the AFC Championship. It was just a heavy dose of Derrick Henry. So I guess that's the one thing I do get scared of, like playing AJ Brown and Corey Davis. But again, it's the highest over under, and you need to take chances. All these guys are carrying some ownership, Matt. I mean, I see everybody on Roto currently higher than 20-ish% besides a guy like Emmanuel Sanders. So I guess Emmanuel Sanders would be, I think, a good tournament play at 5K.
Yeah, it's been consistent too.
But yeah, I think the Steelers wide receivers, I think they're in play. I do kind of like Marquis Brown and what Kevin was talking about. I think he has a really good shot of being in the optimal too. So yeah, there's a lot of different directions you can go here at wide receiver. I think my two favorite are going to be Michael Thomas and Deontay Johnson, though, for cash.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. This wide receiver position could make or break you. Kevin, one thing I noticed comparing this slate to today's slate technically is that Stephon Diggs isn't on the slate, and he was 70% owned. There's no 70% owned wide receiver here. So all the ownership spread out, right? So if you had to pick your favorite GPP option, who is it going to be?
I don't know. That's tough, man. I mean, I definitely think, I always say one of those Steelers receivers, but I also brought up historically when we looked at, I brought this up in my prize picks, when we look at Juju versus Deontay Johnson, or not Juju, I'm sorry, Claypool versus Deontay Johnson. He's had a lot more success against Cleveland. I mean, Claypool this year, just
that's a great pick.
games against Cleveland, he had 24 points. And then the other time he played Cleveland, he had, what was it?
I might be able to find 18.
points.
Yep.
So, yeah, I mean, he's got the key to success in Cleveland. So I definitely like Claypool.
Yeah, I do like Claypool too. He's actually showing the best overall leverage spot on the sheet. I'm trying not to give away too much Patreon content. The ownership will update, so this will all change, guys. Just going to throw it out the window right now. But yeah, let's go ahead and switch over to the tight end position. Enough about the wide receivers. We're trying to keep this relatively short for you guys. Mark Andrews, 54.2% owned, like massively high owned for a tight end. 5.2K. It's going to be him and then everybody else. Kevin, what are your thoughts here on Mark Andrews being the highest owned tight end?
Makes sense. He's the most talented one on the slate. Gets the most usage. Obviously, that makes sense to me. I mean, it should be the chalkiest tight end on the slate. 5,200 still reachable. I guess he's in the elite tier of tight ends still. I'd still consider him probably a top 5 tight end. No one else on the slate like that. But I don't know. Not saying it's my favorite pick on the slate.
Okay. TJ, you agree with that? Do you agree with him being chalky?
Yeah, definitely. The highest over-under, the best matchup against the Tennessee secondary. It's him and Marquis Brown that are Lamar Jackson's favorite targets. I think it's a really cheap price tag too at 5,200. So I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that he is my cash play for tight end.
Got it. And his target share is way up there. He's been getting a healthy dose of targets each and every game.
Higher than all these other guys too.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess my question for you guys, for Kevin, who else are you going to be considering? I guess you're going to have to pay down if you're not paying up for Mark Andrews. So who are you paying down for, Kevin?
Honestly, I feel pretty good about paying down for Eric Ebron.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm impressed with what I've seen with him. Very, very dangerous in the red zone. And Big Ben likes him. I know there's a lot of mouths to feed on that team, but I think he's one of the people who could break the slate a little bit.
A great matchup against Cleveland Browns. TJ, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think Ebron was going to be my cheap guy. So in terms of red zone targets, there's 3 guys that are above 25%. It's Mark Andrews currently with a 33% red zone target share. Jonnu Smith at 3,200, so I think he's viable as well. 31% red zone target share, and then Eric Ebron sitting at a 25% red zone target share. The only other guy above 20% is going to be Jimmy Graham, and Jimmy Graham's a crook. So I think those would be my 3 guys. I think Mark Andrews is going to be my favorite for cash. If I'm playing tournaments, I think I'm looking at Jonnu Smith and I'm looking at Eric Ebron, hoping that they can fall into the end zone. And Jimmy Graham's a crook, so he'll have 2 touchdowns tomorrow.
What did Jimmy Graham do to you?
He was born.
Okay. Whoa. I'm kidding. All right. So yeah, I'm not going to extend on anything you guys just said because I'm
make sure you don't cut that.
No, I'm not cutting it. 100% not cutting it. All right, moving on to defense. Last but not least, we have the Saints, the highest owned, 20.3%. I'm assuming people are chasing over-unders here. The Saints, we know historically a really good defense. This is the lowest projected total. At least opposing offenses are supposed to score against them at 18.75. The Chicago Bears are supposed to put up 18.75 points. What are your thoughts, TJ, on the Saints being the highest owned? They're also the most expensive.
Yeah, I mean, again, makes sense. It's the lowest team total over under that a defense is going up against. The Chicago Bears currently sitting at 18.5. So if we're solely looking at that, Matt, Bears are supposed to score the least amount of points. So I want to take that defense that's going up against them. It's going to be the Saints. At 3,800, I think that's a viable option that you can get to. They're not too expensive. They're not, north of 4K. So I think you can make that work. And that's the defense that I would like to go to for cash.
Kevin, you agree?
Yeah, I like it for cash. It's tough because it's defense and GPPs. Anything could happen. But also in the same breath, how easily could we see the Saints just consuming the Bears? And the Bears already have a suspect offense. I know they've been doing good lately. But, we could see this go very south for them very fast. Couple pick sixes. Sure. And, next thing you know, Saints are easily optimal. So, I don't know. It's tough. I like them for both, to be honest.
Fun fact is that paying up on the slate for the Saints, the most obvious defense is actually contrarian. So good chalk for me. I'm not going to even argue saying another team's going to be a good play because the Saints are the most obvious, and they're also carrying decently low ownership at 20.3%. It's all spread out across these defenses, again, pending the ownership projections. So I think that's it, guys. I'm going to go ahead and end the video because that's...
No GPP defenses?
You can. What's your GPP defense? Go ahead.
I was just going to say the Bears at 2,800.
I actually like the Bears too.
Bottle up Kamara. You let Drew Brees try and beat you. Cover the dink and dunks, and I think you can see the Bears potentially be the highest scoring defense if you can do a couple of those things right.
Right. And you're paying down $2,800 or you're saving $1,000 to go pay up for somebody else. Really do like that pick.
Montgomery.
Yeah, okay. I think that's like the 10th time you said that name in this video. Anyway, guys, that will wrap up the video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, please do hit that subscription button, notification bell, and of course, smash that like button for all of our future NFL content. With all that being said, have a great rest of your day, and let's cash.